Starting, my first question to all of you is that why do you think the size of the business matters? If suppose we are comparing Coca-Cola with Cola Next or Gourmet in Pakistan, we say that Coca-Cola is a big company, whereas Cola Next is a small company. Why do you think size does matter for an organization? Yes, anyone of you?
सर क्योंकि अगर जितना बड़ा बिजनेस होगा उतना ज़्यादा प्रॉफिट होगा.
जितना बड़ा बिजनेस होगा उतना ज़्यादा प्रॉफिट होगा एग्जैक्टली सो इफ द प्रॉफिट इज मोर तो एम्प्लॉयज़ वुड बी हैप्पी बिकॉज दे माइट बी गेटिंग अ चंक ऑफ दैट शेयर बिल्कुल परफेक्ट व्हाट अबाउट द कस्टमर्स कोका कोला वर्सेस कोला नेक्स्ट what would be the impact on the customers related to the size of the business? Salman, what do you think?
Sir, better experience?
Yes, better experience. Why? You think that a big business is always coming up with a better experience? How? Why you prefer? Suppose somebody prefers one brand over another. One brand is big, other is small. Why? हम कहते हैं कोका कोला. Suppose if we said Coca Cola is better than suppose Gourmet, why we are preferring Coca Cola over the Gourmet or any other local brand? Why consumer preference is there? Any answer? Salman, no input. So the point is actually being a consumer. वही iPhone वाली बात कि why many of the people want to have an iPhone. It is not just because of their iOS, it is not just because of their good camera. It is basically everyone tries to relate themselves with a strong brand name. It's an affiliation, right? If you are a if you are having a big brand, you try to tell others that I am having a big brand. Suppose if somebody is having an iPhone, they are going to show off that iPhone. Suppose some of the people, not everyone obviously. So some of them is going to show off. Why? Because they said that I am affiliated, I am having a big brand. So if big brand means they are going to affiliate themselves with the big brand. Why? Because they want to showcase themselves as a big person. So this is a psychology of a consumer. They want to affiliate themselves with the premium brands always. Why we go to the premium restaurants and have selfies over there? Because we want to affiliate ourselves. It is a consumer psychology that they want to affiliate themselves with the big brands and then tell others that I am having a big brand with me. That means I am a brand as well. So it is a branding through an affiliations, right? So size of the business may matter to the consumers because of that affiliation thing. Got that point? Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, so I hope that you guys have gone through the ways of measuring the size of the business. So let's have a look. Number of employees, revenue, capital employed, market share, market capitalization. We will look at these points one by one of measuring the size of the business. So let's have a look at the next one. The next one is, just give me a minute. The first element is the number of employees. So how can you measure the size of the business? Through the number of employees. That higher the number of employees, the greater the size of the business. The measure is usually used for labor intensive industries such as agriculture. So why do you think number of employees is a good measure? Especially for those businesses which are labor intensive. For example, a factory which is using more number of people to produce the stuff. What is opposite to the number of employees? Capital intensive, that we use the machinery to produce the stuff. So if we are measuring the size of the business, we may say that suppose the example is in front of you. So GlaxoSmithKline is having 100,000 employees with them. And if you are comparing the GlaxoSmithKline with any other company having 200,000 employees, what does that mean? That means
सर
that is
स्क्रीन नहीं शेयर हो रही.
that is a bigger company, is it? Okay, so I'm sharing it again. So the number of employees is basically the measure of exchange when when both of the businesses are labor intensive. Got that? So let's have a look What is the problem in it? What about the capital intensive business and the labor intensive business? A capital intensive business is a business which is using machines to produce a stuff. Labor intensive is a business which uses people to produce a stuff. Okay, can you compare the size of two different businesses, which is one is capital intensive, one is labor intensive? No, you cannot. Why not? Because obviously, if you are choosing number of employees as a measure, the labor intensive business will always have more number of employees because they are not using the machines. But any business which is using machines to produce all of the stuff will obviously have less number of employees. So that is the limitation of number of employees. So what is the result? What is the solution? The solution is that if you are using number of employees as a measure, so what would we do? We will be comparing two businesses which are labor intensive or two businesses which both are capital intensive. We cannot compare two businesses where one is labor, one is capital intensive. Got this point? Got this point? Yes or no? If you are using revenue as a measure of exchange, that means this is regarded as the total value of sales made by the business. For example, revenue for Alibaba Group is 134 billion. Revenue for Target was 106 billion. We can easily compare to these two businesses, and these two businesses are more or less in the same industry. So 134 billion versus 106 billion. Which one is a bigger company in terms of revenue? Alibaba. But suppose if you're using number of employees as a measure, Target might be the bigger company because Target may have more number of employees. That may happen. But in terms of revenue, currently we say as far as this example is concerned, Alibaba is a big company. अच्छा अब इसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम है? The problem is, what about a doctor who is a plastic surgeon versus a psychiatrist? Okay, so what is the problem in this case? Problem क्या है? If you are using revenue as a measure of exchange, you cannot compare two businesses sometimes when they are in different categories or when their pricing strategy is entirely different. Okay, question is, if you are comparing the sales of or the revenue of suppose Toyota Corolla, I'm only talking about Corolla, versus the sales of Audi. In terms of revenue, who would be having a greater number? Toyota Corolla or Audi? What do you guys think? Any idea? Okay, let's keep it simple. What about the sales or the revenue of Toyota Corolla versus the revenue of Suzuki Mehran in Pakistan? Who would be having a greater revenue? Yes, Hassan, what do you think?
सर टोयोटा करोला
Toyota Corolla. Why is that?
क्योंकि उसकी सेलिंग प्राइस काफी हद तक ज्यादा हाई है सुजुकी
Yes.
मैरान से
So suppose selling 5 or 6 Mehrans equals to selling a one good branded Corolla or a high model of Corolla. Okay. So in that particular case, we may say that Corolla is going to, in terms of revenue, Corolla is going to be always a winner, and in that particular case Mehran might be a loser in that case. So revenue के लिए we have to be careful that we cannot compare two different businesses or two businesses having a different price range. We cannot compare both of them. Psychiatric always charge less against a plastic surgeon. A heart surgeon charges more than an ENT specialist. That's a more common thing we already discussed. So in terms of revenue, we have to be careful that both of the businesses or the products must be of the same pricing category. Have a look at this slide. Capital employed. What is capital employed? The total value of assets used by a company to generate the profit. What is capital? The formula of the capital employed? Total assets minus the current liabilities. So we will discuss these assets liabilities thing in detail in the finance section. But for now, what is asset? anything that is owned by an organization. For a school, building is an asset, furniture is an asset, multimedia is an asset, right? So total assets minus current liability. What is current liabilities? The short term loans. Liability means loan and current means short term. So any short term loans which we are supposed to pay back to the people, if you subtract that amount from the total asset, that is called as capital employed. इन सिंपल वर्ड्स में बात करें तो आपके टोटल एसेट्स कंपनी के माइनस शॉर्ट टर्म में जो भी लोगों को पैसे वापस करने हैं उनको सब्ट्रैक्ट कर दें उस अमाउंट को, दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड. फॉर एग्जांपल एक स्कूल की जो टोटल एसेट्स की वैल्यू है दैट इज 1 मिलियन, लोगों के जो पैसे उन्होंने वापस करने हैं दैट इज 100,000. सो 1 मिलियन माइनस 100,000 दैट इज 0.9 मिलियन. सो दैट इज द कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कंपनी. अच्छा, कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड से में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? In this particular case, we have to be careful that if you are using capital employed as a measure of measuring the size of the business, what is the problem you are going to face? The amount of capital employed depends upon the aggressiveness in objectives of a business. And what do you mean by aggressiveness? The capital intensive and use of automation always add up the value of the capital employed. Toyota Corolla versus Mehran. In terms of revenue, हमने कहा था Corolla was better. Again, in terms of capital employed, Toyota Corolla might be a good figure again. Why? Because they might be using automated machines to produce stuff, whereas Suzuki Mehran might be going for a labor intensive method. So any business which is more capital intensive will always have a higher value of capital employed. क्यों? Because उनके assets will be more. Machines is an asset as well. So higher the machines, higher the assets. Higher the asset means higher the value of capital employed. Clear? Any confusion in this particular slide? Shall we move ahead? So next one is the market share. What do you mean by market share? It's the ratio of the company's sales against the total market sales, and this is represented in terms of the percentages. So market share का formula आपके सामने, company की sales divided by market sales. So what do you mean by market sales over here? Market means the industry. Toyota Corolla की sales divided by sales of all of the automobiles including Toyota, Suzuki, Honda and any other brand. So that means market share is the sale of a company divided by the total sale of that industry times 100. Suppose if you say that Toyota is having a market share of 25%, that means they have 25% chunk in the market against all of the companies. The greater the market share, the higher the chances of monopolies, the higher the chances of the premium pricing being charged by the businesses. Okay, अब market share में क्या problem है? What about the company operating in a country for 10 plus years against a company who has recently started in operations? Pakistan में for the last few months or so, there has been a trend of using the local brands. There has been a trend, especially when it comes to the food and drinks industry. So let's talk about fizzy drink industry. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Gourmet, Cola Next, and some other local brands are playing in the market these days. Who is having a greater market share? Coca-Cola. Why? Because they are there in Pakistan for the last 50-60 years. But when it comes to Cola Next, Gourmet, they have been there for the last few years only. So if a company is been operating for many years, obviously their market share is going to be higher. And a company which has just started operations few years back will obviously have a lesser market share mostly, and we may not be able to compare both of the businesses. So when you say that Coca-Cola is bigger in terms of market share, be careful. You cannot compare Coca-Cola with Cola Next. You can compare Coca-Cola with Pepsi because the lifespan is nearly the same for both. But when it comes to Cola Next, we can compare that with Gourmet because the lifespan is more or less same. So Cola Next versus Gourmet can be compared in terms of market share. But when you are going to compare Coca-Cola versus Cola Next, it won't work. Coca-Cola will always have a greater market share because they are there in the market for many years. So the higher the age of the company, higher the market share would be. So comparison should be natural. Comparison should be not be abnormal. Alright, so take 5 minutes and go through the slide. Not 5 minutes, in fact 2 minutes, and go through the slide from start to end and let me know once you guys are done so that we can start discussing that. Alright, done with it? Okay, so what is market capitalization? Let's have a look. It is regarded as the total value of the shares issued by a company. So what do you mean by value of shares? A company. We have gone through different forms of organizations: sole trader, private limited company, public limited companies. So total value of shares issued by company. When the word company is there, that means we're talking about public and private limited companies. But when we say that values of shares issued, so normally we use this term for the public limited company, not the private limited, because in private limited the value of shares issued or the share number of shares issued remains the same more or less, so it rarely change. So if we're using market capitalization, this measure is used for the public limited company only because their value of shares changes a lot every other day. So that is why market capitalization is a measure for only public limited company. Remember that. Next, the option is only available for public limited company as we've discussed. This tends to show that higher the share price, greater will be the value of the company. For example, what is the formula of the market capitalization? Have a look. Market capitalization equals to current share price times total number of shares issued. What do you mean by current share price? The share price currently in the market, floating in the market. As we said, that when it comes to the public limited companies, their price of the shares will change gradually. Today the share price is 100, tomorrow it may be 120, next day it might be 98. So it varies a lot. So current share price times total number of shares issued by that particular company. So that is going to give you the value of market capitalization. So if a company is having a greater market capitalization, that company is called as a bigger company. And any company which is having a lesser market capitalization, obviously a smaller company. So what is the problem in this capitalization? We have to be careful. What about the share price of a competitor spikes up just because they are offering good dividends in the coming days? This happens a lot. Whenever there is a good news by any one company in a public exchange, what happens is stock exchange, what happens is we can invest into the companies by just click, and we can get the money out, divest from the company on just one click. So if it is getting pretty easier, what happens is the investors keeps an eye on the good news. If the good news comes from one company but not from others, in that case most of the investors will start investing in that company expecting that the share price is going to go up. This is going to spike up the price of the shares due to the high demand. But is it going to be permanent? No. Because as soon as the news is there, for example, they say that we are going to announce a dividend, we are going to give 10% profit on the profit on each share, and as soon as they get the profit, after that all of the investors who were attracted there will start leaving because they have got the fruit of the good news. That is why we say this is an abnormal scenario. If you are comparing the size of the business during these times of spike ups, it is not going to give you an accurate measure. So be careful when you are using market capitalization. The market must be behaving normally, not abnormally. Got this point? And one more point in it. In abnormal times of stock exchanges, when the stock exchanges are crashing, or it is showing a bullish trend, In that particular case, again, we do not use this measure because it is going to give us a wrong information. So in short, market capitalization is used in the normal times when the market is behaving normally. There is not any good news coming in, everything is behaving in its natural neutral environments, right? So market capitalization is used in that particular stance. Okay, so any point which requires a discussion till this element is the best approach to measure the business size. What's the best approach? Number of employees, market capitalization, uh, market share. Which one is best depends on the scenario given to you, and you are going to use your common sense that which measure is going to be useful for us. And I have given you the limitation of each point. If limitation is there, we are not going to use that measure. For example, market abnormally behave कर रही है, एक बहुत गुड न्यूज़ आ गई है डिविडेंड की. अगर केस स्टडी में this information is there, obviously we may not be able to use market capitalization as a measure. Why? Because you may give an argument for that. I'm not going to use market capitalization as a measure of measuring the size of the business because the market is not behaving normally. In this case, we may come up with a wrong figure. That is why I am going to use market share, number of employees, or any other thing. This is what you are going to state in your answer, right? It is going to give a logical argumentation to your examiner that which approach you feel which was worthwhile or has to be used. Okay, now we are going to discuss about some small businesses, large scale businesses, family owned businesses. Have a look at the slide from start till end. It is self explanatory. All the pros and cons are self explanatory, but still, if there is any point which you feel requires a discussion, let me know and I'll explain that to you. Alright, done. So first, what is the definition of small business? They have got less number of employees. Since we are not using a specific figure for that, 20, 30, 40, 50, because in each country the definition varies. In some countries less than 50 might be a small, in some countries less than 100 might be a small. So we are just saying less number of employees. Pros and cons, they create the jobs. We are not comparing the small business against a large business. We're comparing a small business against an individual who is not an entrepreneur and doing a job. So rather than doing a job, you create jobs. That is the advantage of a small business over a salaried individual. Create competition for the larger firms. Why do you think that a small business will create a competition? They are very small. Why do you think they are going to create a competition for the larger firms? Anyone? Yes, Hassan, what do you think? That why there is going to be competition for the larger firm? एक small scale business है, वो है ही छोटा सा, तो वो large firm के साथ क्या competition create करेगा? In which terms it's going to create a competition? What do you think? Yes, Salman.
Sir, it creates more variety for the consumer.
Yes, it creates a variety. Plus, जो small scale business हैं, वो हमेशा आगे तब आते हैं when they are innovative, when they are bridging the gap in the market. मार्केट में कोई ऐसी प्रोडक्ट है जो लार्ज स्केल बिजनेस नहीं दे पा रहा या वो नहीं दे सकेगा, since the market size is very small, or large scale business don't go for the small areas, or not don't go for the small chunk of people desiring a specific element. So small scale business, since their cost is less, they can offer that product very easily to the smaller chunk. So that is why when they are also innovative, plus they are offering a product to a smaller chunk of people, future may there might be more demand. So they are going to create a competition for the larger firms on the basis of the innovation, on the basis of the variety. Third point देखिएगा, flexibility with changing conditions. Small scale business को change करना आसान है, large scale business को change करना मुश्किल है. Give me a very lame example for that. We see a cart vendor सर्दियों में वो सूप लगा लेता है, गर्मियों में वो आइसक्रीम लगा लेता है, गोला गंडा लगा लेता है. So for that particular small scale business, it is pretty easy to change their operations क्योंकि small scale है, मसला ही नहीं है. But when it comes to the big companies like Walls, Polka, Yummy, Hiko, so these companies cannot change. ये नहीं कह सकते कि सर्दियों में चलें we start selling the soup. They cannot do that. Why? Because एक large scale business है, there is a cost of machine, there is a cost of rental which they are paying for their huge buildings, फिर उसके बाद employees हैं, there is less flexibility for the large scale business. But for a small scale business, there is more flexibility. They can change their products, they can variate their products, they can add up more customization in their products on the base of demand of the consumer. लेकिन large scale business ये नहीं कर सकता. नेक्स्ट, इनोवेशन एंड डायनामिक प्रोडक्ट्स. ये भी हम बात कर चुके हैं कि स्मॉल स्केल बिजनेस है, दे विल ऑलवेज बी इनोवेटिव, दे विल कम अप विद अ वेरिएशन इन देयर प्रोडक्ट्स. वो अपने प्रोडक्ट को चेंज करते रहेंगे और से दे विल कीप ऑन अट्रैक्टिंग न्यू एंड न्यू कंज्यूमर्स. बट लार्ज स्केल बिजनेस कैन नॉट डू द वैरायटी अलॉट. बट देयर इज अ प्रॉब्लम, फाइनेंसेस कम होंगे इनके पास, सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम. सेकेंड प्रॉब्लम, इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल नहीं होंगे इनके पास बिकॉज दे आर स्मॉल स्केल, दे वॉन्ट बी एबल टू एंजॉय द इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल. थर्ड थिंग, डाइवर्सिफिकेशन नहीं होगी. What do you mean by diversification? They cannot invest in multiple areas at the same point. Yummy, Polka, Walls, these companies can still invest in some other businesses because they have got large revenues or profits. लेकिन when it comes to a small scale business, वो alternate businesses में at a time invest नहीं कर सकेगा. That is normally an issue due to the lack of finance again. And governments के लिए क्या problem है? Small scale business obviously they require more money, but they are not paying the taxes to the government since they are not falling in that tax bracket. Earning ही नहीं है. Okay. Next one is, एक और चीज़ देख लेते हैं, then we are going to wrap up. I'm not going to extend that much. Next one is basically the family-owned businesses. Since we are discussing the UK syllabus over here, so they have got the concept of family-owned businesses as well. So any business which is managed by at least two members of the same family is going to be called as family-owned business. Take 1 minute, go through the advantages, and let me know if there is any advantage which requires a discussion. If you are done with it, let me know you are done with it. Good. So any point which requires a discussion? So there is more knowledge been transferred to the lower tiers. Finances are more available because family can carry finances and you're not expanding that much. You're not spending that much. Everything, all of the profits remain in the family. And commitment is going to be there because we are attached, emotionally attached with some certain brand. So that is why we are committed to that family-owned businesses more against the loyalty elements are there. But there is a problem, succession. Newer generations are either incompetent or they don't like their work of their forefathers. Sometimes if they say that whatever you are doing, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this thing which is different. So newer generations not necessarily going to accept the same thing. Informality. So since it's a family owned business, at the end of the day you know that चाचा हैं, मामू हैं, क्या कर लेंगे, कुछ नहीं करेंगे, बिजनेस में डांट भी दिया तो घर आके रिलेशंस नहीं ख़राब करेंगे. So in this normally in such type of business we see informality is there. There's not a corporate culture been enhanced or developed in that particular area. So we sometimes see informality more in the family owned businesses as compared to other businesses. Traditional होंगे, traditional approaches पे चलेंगे, they are not going to upgrade that much since they say that our forefathers are doing this thing, likewise we are going to do that. So they are normally less dynamic against the other businesses, it is seen. So these are the three disadvantages of the family owned businesses. Tomorrow inshallah we'll be discussing about the internal and external growth, how the business can grow internally and how the business can grow externally, and then we'll see that what are the types of growth strategies the businesses will have. कल के लेसन में इंशाल्लाह विल बी रैपिंग अप दिस पर्टिकुलर चैप्टर. काफ़ी एक्सटेंडेड चैप्टर है लेकिन विल ट्राई टू रैप अप दिस थिंग. एंड ऑन द नेक्स्ट कमिंग डे लाइक ऑन द मंडे आई विल बी वीकेंड के ऊपर आपको मैं कुछ क्वेश्चंस दे दूंगा, साइन कर दूंगा, एंड ऑन द वीकेंड ऑब्वियसली विल बी अटेम्प्टिंग दीज क्वेश्चंस. and on Monday inshallah we'll be discussing those questions along with the uh, few more questions which I'll be giving you from the topicals, right? So inshallah we'll catch up on the in the next class with the next topic of internal and external growth.